Welcome back to another edition of Post Media's Ottawa Senators panel. I'm Ken Warren with Don Brennan, who's back in this chair after several weeks covering the game with a different ball, football. So he's back to talk about hockey, along with Bruce Garriock. So we're here once again to talk about what is the case with the Senators. We're back to the same topics we've been talking about really for the last month or so, and it's what's going to happen with Matt Duchene, Mark Stone, Ryan Dzingel, et al. At this point, it doesn't look promising that the Senators are going to be able to sign the three of them. Where do we go with this? Don, where do we go with this?
At what point did it look promising? I've never thought there was a hope of signing these guys. And, I mean, it's, to me, if they were serious about it, if they were determined, or if they could, which is the big thing here, the big F, then they would have been getting stuff done some time ago. If they could actually pull it off, if they could afford to sign these guys, I don't understand how either one of the three or any one of the three would want to come back here.
Well, I look at the situation now, and really we're at a point of no return here, right? Like 2 weeks from the trade deadline as we tape this video, it seems like at some point or another that the Senators are going to have to turn to what can they get for these guys, what will the asking price be for these guys if they've all decided to move on and go elsewhere. And you have to look at the return now. And what is the return going to be? People talk about 3 assets each for Stone and Duchene, maybe a first-round pick for Ryan Dzingel. Can you get someone who's going to help you right away? Is a contender going to want to give up a player who's going to help right away? I don't see that happening. The other thing is, you look at the timing of all of this. Do you want to take this right to February 25th at 3 p.m. Eastern? I don't think so, because it's a lot of pressure and there's a lot of moves to make here if you are in fact going this route.
So let's go back to last week, where it sounded in a way like the Senators owner Eugene Melnyk saying, hey, we'll just wait till 2021, 25. We're going to spend near the cap when we can rebuild around the young guys we have now. That was followed up by Nick Truskowski, the COO, saying fans shouldn't see this as the worst-case scenario if we lose Mark Stone and Duchene, and that you can rebuild around players coming back in. I really think that's a tough pill for fans to accept. We've seen season ticket numbers decline. You're asking fans to be more and more and more patient, waiting, and there are signs. We've talked about it all year about the young guys who are coming, and I think there is some prospects and some talent there. But again, it's another asking fans to wait even longer.
Yeah, I think the whole timing of it was interesting, curious. If you were sincere, if you really wanted to have fans believe you, I think you maybe would have wanted to come across with this point earlier, but also do it in Ottawa. Like, I understand the excuses for not doing it in Ottawa, but do it in Ottawa, because people in Ottawa don't like Toronto. They don't want to hear messages coming from Toronto. They don't want to hear Eugene Melnyk going on a radio station in Toronto when there's a radio station here that has his rights. Just be upfront about what you're doing. And also, can I just say also, the whole Nick Truskowski thing, if he was trying to be the spokesman in Ottawa, I think he did more harm than good. I mean, when he's coming across with messages like, this ownership has won 10% more games.
Well,
no, I mean, that
didn't help.
If you want to be mocked, then that's what's going to happen here. Because what more than the expansion team, more than when? Who cares about that? It's what's developed in the last few years that have turned this into an embarrassment.
How can you control this message, Bruce? Because it is a tough sell to fans, no question.
No, and the fan base is waiting with bated breath to see what's going to happen with these guys, and to have people look 2 years down the road is a difficult sell. And you look at the situation that they're in right now. I can't believe, though, that people say, well, this was a message to Stone and Duchene. I can't believe that this message wouldn't have been told to them. They've both been told what's going on with this rebuild during their meetings with Pierre Dorion. I can't believe that this would be the first time they would have heard that.
So, I mean, I don't know. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but we figure this is what's happening. If these big names are gone, what happens, let's say short term? I mean, you can look down to the farm where they swept the weekend series or weekend games against Laval and Toronto. Logan Brown looks like he's found a bit of a role playing with Drake Batherson, who we saw earlier in the year. Is this going to be enough to even to go through a stretch run here to the end of a season? If these guys are on the horizon, is that going to do much for fans to say, hey, just you wait, and we'll be good one day down the road?
Well, it's going to have to be. I mean, I think you have to promote the Logan Browns and the Drake Bathersons and anybody else that's got a shot at playing in Ottawa in the next couple of years, because people need something to go to the rink to see. Look, the attendance is going to plummet once Stone and Duchene are traded. I mean, people are going to be so frustrated after what happened with the Carlson thing, but you've got no other choice but to trade for picks, to trade for the future, to keep working for the future. And another thing, too, we talked briefly earlier about the goaltending situation, and Anders Nilsson has played well the last couple of games. The thing I don't understand, did Dorion come out last week and say that he wasn't trading Craig Anderson? I mean, if you have a taker for Craig Anderson and you're not keeping a 38-year-old goalie who's going to be making $5 million a year next year, you're not going to be out of the basement until 2021, you've said.
Let's address.
I'm not sure there's a market, Don. I'm not sure there's a market for him. He makes $4.5 million next year. That's a big commitment for any team, Don. And maybe that was a bit of the motivation behind the message, because maybe there hasn't been any phone calls.
Be honest about that. Be honest about it. Say we can't give this guy away. I don't mind that.
But here's the other thing that came out of Nick Ruskowski's comments after the Melnick comments is, hey, we've got to get to the floor somehow.
Yeah.
So you have a goalie making $5 million next year. Maybe you have to keep that goalie, whether he's up here or down here. If the return is a third or a fourth, I don't see that being enough to get rid of a goalie who can keep you in games. But
I do think on a lot of nights, and look, Nilsson has played well, and I know we're going to talk about him later. I do think on a lot of nights, Anderson has given them the opportunity, and they went through that 11-game stretch there where they didn't seem to have much in the way of goaltending while Anderson was hurt. I just think part of that is, I don't know, is there a big market for a 37-year-old goalie making $4.5 million next year? My personal feeling, I doubt it.
Yeah, I doubt it too, but I just want to say, if you think that you can trade a goalie, I would rather trade for Craig Anderson and his ticket if I could somehow squeeze him in, because he does have the experience. He is a proven guy. He's played in the playoffs before. There are teams that could use some help. Calgary being one of them.
Calgary's one for sure.
That's a team that I would like to have Craig Anderson around in case Mike Smith or Dave Rittich can't get the job done. I would like to find a way to have. I mean, there's other teams too that could use some goaltending.
Yeah, if he didn't have if he didn't have the ticket next year, of course, right? Then you could see a team for sure.
Be creative. Then.
Okay, so let's. You mentioned Anders Nilsson, Bruce. I mean, here's a guy who came in and you looked at his numbers and you looked at his track record and you said, well, how's this guy going to help? He's big. That was really what we knew about the guy. He comes in with a long losing streak in Vancouver, comes in and didn't look good in his first game or two, and then all of a sudden he's filling the net, he's stopping pucks, he's won 6 of 8 games now, and he looks like he's a legitimate NHL goaltender, if not a guy that can push, for the time being, push Craig Anderson. So what are they going to do with this guy? Does he enter the equation into next year?
Well, they have to be very gun shy, right? After Mike Condon and Andrew Hammond. I mean, yeah, right now he looks like he can play, and so did those guys. And those guys actually, over a longer period of time, showed that they were contributing and they were good. Anders Nilsson has had a very shaky career until this point. So now the pucks are hitting him. No disrespect intended, but he's playing well. But it has been a small window, so yeah. I think you have to tread very carefully. I don't think you sign him.
No, and I'm with Don. I think what you do is you wait to the end of the season, or if teams call it. Now there's a guy with very little left on his contract. On you talk about teams needing goaltending help. Maybe a team calls on him, and you have to at that point consider that, because really down the stretch here, what are you playing for?
So down the stretch, what are you playing for? That's what we're going to amount to here. By the time we do this next panel, who knows who's going to still be here, right? You said deadline's in 2 weeks from today. In 2 weeks is the deadline, but maybe this time next week we have some clarity on this. It's going to be a tough time if they don't sign these 3 guys, which you suspect, but we'll be back next week with our next edition of the Ottawa Senators panel. Thanks for tuning in.